everyone, happy Friday. It's Janet Wakeland here with Remarkably Created, and in today's Facebook Live video we're going to revisit shaker cards. They're a great way to add a little bit of movement, a little bit of excitement to your cards, and just to kind of mix things up just a little bit. So I'm going to show you a few samples first, and then I'm going to talk to you about the basic supplies needed, and we'll make two cards together. So also I do have one of the ingredients needed, the foam strips, as a door prize for today's video. So like, comment, share, all of those good things for a chance to win. So let's get started first with the samples, and we'll bring them back in again at the end to talk just a little bit more about them. So this one is from the Lighting the Way bundle. Then we have our Real Fun Day at the Farm. Okay. Adventure Together, Little Night Under the Stars. We have our Playing in the Rain. Okay. We have our Wildflowers here, our Dainty Delights. And then we have our Sweet Little Gnome sending you some birthday wishes. So you've got a couple of samples to inspire you there, and we're going to come back and talk to you about these samples and about the variations that make them all, besides the stamped image and paper, just a little bit different. Let me pull in a piece of paper for our work surface. And for making a shaker card, the basics that you need is you need acetate window sheets. Stampin' Up! Does sell 12 by 12 acetate sheets. Of course, you can find sheet protectors elsewhere as well too, but sometimes it's just as easy to add these to an order when you have one going in, as opposed to hopping in your car and then driving all over town. So we do have these available. And then you're going to want foam strips. Stampin' Up's pack of foam strips, you have 2 long packs of them. I personally take mine and I cut them in half and I store them in a clear mount stamp case. And I find that that length is perfect for a lot of the things that I do by having them in half. But each one of you can figure out a great storage system for yourself, but that's what works for me. And then you're going to want fun things to shake around inside of the card. This is a trio of sequins that Stampin' Up! Has in their annual catalog, and there is a ton of these, and they're all mixed with just really cool shades of the colors, and then some iridescent pieces. I mean, they're just really fun. And this looks like a mermaid, and you'll see us use some of these. A lot of the different paper pumpkin kits, a lot of times will have sequins or things in them. I hoard them. I save them all for shaker cards. Stampin' Up's had different kinds of sequins in the past. You know, even things like wiggly eyes work inside of your card. This is another set of sequins for solid colors that are currently on the clearance rack. So there's quite a few sequins and things on the clearance rack with Stampin' Up! Right now. Other things that you can use are stamped images or die cut images, either way, but preferably die cut images. So whether they're stamped and die cut or just simply die cut like our cute little farm animals, that's another way to create elements to shake up inside your card, so you can do that. And then the other thing that you can use is head out to one of the Dollar Tree's dollar type stores and head to the party aisle and look for that little fun sequin that you use in gift bags that sometimes you'll throw on the table that then is like you never get rid of ever again, right? But look for those fun little sequins and things like that, especially if you're looking for a special theme or something like that. There's lots of places that you can find all of these fun different types of sequins. So the basics again, acetate, foam strips, and something to shake around inside of your card. The depth of your foam strips will be determined by what you're trying to shake around. Obviously, the flatter, the better. You only need 1 layer of foam strips. If you're trying to do something a little thicker, maybe buttons or things like that, you may stack these foam strips, okay? But I find that I like flat, so that's my tips for you. So let's take a look also at a couple of other tips for you. When I'm die cutting, a lot of times, you know, if I've cut a square out, a rectangle out, that leaves a frame. So I just kind of save these, and when you're working with your shaker cards, you want to make sure, if you look at these, let me pull one of these up. okay? You want to make sure that the border is always going to be wider than your foam strip, okay? You want to make sure that that works, and I'll show you kind of why here in just a second. Here I could definitely use this to have 6 windows that shaker elements would pop. And this one circle is pretty close to the edge, but if you lay this down, you're gonna see that it works perfectly, okay? So you wanna make sure that, again, whatever it is that you're going to use to create your window, that you can hide that foam strip behind, because you don't wanna see it from the front, okay? So you wanna make sure at least that whatever you're using to create that opening is wider than your foam strip. So there's lots of different ways that you can create your openings. Our shape dies work perfectly for that. The stylish shapes, the beautiful shapes. Again, you can see here this, and just to bring another idea in for you, you can see here where I used the conversation bubbles and the edge, that's one of the dies in it. It does have some sequins in it, as well as it has some stamped and die cut images. This is here for a reason, because this is my example of what not to do. When I placed all of my conversation bubbles on the card, this edge here was too narrow, okay? And when I went ahead and tried to monkey with trimming the foam strips even narrower, I ended up with a little hole, okay? And all of my shaker stuff kept falling out. So I simply just took a conversation bubble and folded it around the side to fix it. And it's a nice creative, you know, touch, and it wasn't intentional, but it's just an example of, you want to make sure that, see how close this was? And if you look to the side, you can see the foam tape just a little bit. The dies should have been moved in just a little bit and given more room for those foam strips. So again, you can make do if you make mistakes. I'm the queen of fixing boo-boos and things like that, but that's why you want that to be wider. And then I just saved these in a little cello bag, and I've got them for making frames and things like that. But they also give me a chance to show you different widths and sizes and things like that. So we'll set those aside. And let's bring in our first project that we're gonna make together. I'm gonna use the stamp set Lucky Clover. We're headed into March, which means the month of leprechauns and 4-leaf clovers and green beer, right? So, and gold coins. So Lucky Clover is what we're looking at. Oh, and rainbows. I know that that's always associated with St. Patrick's Day. So Lucky Clover is what we're working with. I've pre-done some of the work just to kind of focus more on the shaker aspect. So what I did using Granny Apple Green and Garden Green is I just stamped the really large 4-leaf clover and the very small 4-leaf clover randomly to create my background. I have a piece of Granny Apple cardstock that's cut 11 inches by 4 1/4. I found a piece of designer paper from my collection of designer papers. This is the Awash paper, Awash with Beauty. And it's just got a beautiful green that was perfect, and created a frame. You lay a rectangle in and a rectangle around the outside, and you've got your frame. I have my acetate already cut, and you want to cut it so that it's just slightly smaller than your opening here. So I've got that cut. I have a greeting, sending luck and love. I used the sequin dies to create a whole bunch of gold coins. So I've got all of those cut and ready to go. See, you would have been here all day if I'd cut all of this in front of you. So I have all of my coins ready to go. Now, one other tip for you, depending on the surface that you're working in, the humidity, things like that in your house, sometimes you'll have static electricity. So a lot of times what I'll do is, you know, I'll wipe this down. A lot of times though, I wait until I've actually got it adhered on. So let's just go ahead and, okay. Well, since that's out of adhesive, hold on one second. So you guys get to watch me do a little chore here for just a second. We're gonna just put a new refill in of our seal here. You could use liquid glue and stuff. I just find that, especially with working with acetate, the liquid glue then gets really slippery. And in this case, I like to work with tear and tape, or I do like to work with our seal. just because then it's just not sliding all over the place. And then also I'm not getting it on my fingers, I'm not getting it on the acetate. So I do find that working with, like I said, the tear and tape, or let's get it, make sure it's running. Okay. And so on the back side of your frame, you're going to put your adhesive, and then you're going to take your acetate and you're going to lay it down, and then we're going to take our foam tape. And what's nice is you do have a nice edge all the way around, so you have a whole bunch of, you know, like literally a bonus piece. And I like to lay mine down in the middle of that border. I try to keep it away from both edges because, again, I really kind of want it just to be invisible, to be really honest. And as you connect your edges going around, you want to make sure that you don't leave any gaps. Any gaps is going to allow your glitter, your sparkles, whatever it is that you have inside of it, to sneak out and make a mess. So you don't want that. Unless you're trying to, you know, like prank somebody maybe, I guess, but that's not what we want to do. We want it to stay inside the shaker card. And you can see that these actually tear really easily. So now what I'm going to do is I'm not going to remove any of the, oops, hold on a minute. We'll just take and pick this up. You may also want to use a Swiffer cloth. Sometimes that'll help remove any static if you're finding that your acetate is really, really staticky. Especially if you've got like real dry hair. Sometimes that can be, you know, something that causes all of that. And I kind of like a full shaker card. I like it to have a lot of fun things to shake around inside. So let's see if we can get this without making a big mess. This was an awkward packaging, but it's still fun. So we've got some greens because it's St. Patrick's Day. And let's add a little bit more gold. How much or how little you put into it is up to you, but again, I like sparkle. So I'm gonna put a bunch of sparkle in there. So now what you wanna do is you just wanna pull that backing off of the, let's set that over there, off of your strips. And you wanna just be careful not to, of course, pop this up because that stuff will go flying everywhere. And you don't want that to happen. Now this is where the grid paper can come in handy. If you take and lay this and line it up with grid lines, you're going to be able to flip your card over and place this centered on it. So you can use your grid lines to help you line that placement up. So that can be where it comes in really handy. And now we have it all full of fun shaky stuff. And look how nice they just all slide around. We'll take our card, and when I'm all done, I'll go back and I will add a, I don't know where my bone folder is, so this is gonna do. Boy, I can tell I've been away on vacation for a week. I still have, I guess, parade brain, Mardi Gras brain, still trying to catch up. So I can tell I've been away and not on my A game. Sorry about that, guys. It'll get a little piece of cardstock on the inside. And you can see I glued that right over the top. You can definitely decorate right over the top of that acetate. In this case, that's what the lantern is. It's done right over the center of that so that you can see it. Here in this case, we have a partial cow over part of that corner and then the greeting right over the top. The other thing we did with this one is we played on the designer paper in the background. That barn is actually part of the designer paper, so you can incorporate that into it. And same thing here. We have flowers up the side and across, and a greeting over part of the opening. So you don't have to leave the entire opening exposed. You can go ahead and layer some things onto that acetate, just like we did too with our sweet little spring gnome. They're down here in the corner. The other thing we did with this one here is we created the shaker, the square first, And you can see that it's the same color as the frame. And then we layered the whole thing onto the card front. Okay, so we created that little circle or that little square, got her colored to match, little flowers. So you can see how that works. So let's look at another one. We'll make one more together, have a little bit of fun. And you know, anything can be a shaker, guys, as far as stamp sets and stuff like that. You can see the variety here in terms of, you know, we did a farm, we did the lightning bugs, we did clovers. Right now we're getting ready to do the motorcycle. So we can definitely have a lot of fun with our projects. So I already have this cut with the window. In this case, you're gonna see that it's narrow at the top, a little wider at the bottom, and that's because of the larger embellishment that I'm going to add on to the bottom down here. I used the rectangle to create an opening, and I used a rectangle then to create a frame just to add a little bit more color. I have our acetate, like we've talked about before, ready to go. I have a piece of silver foil with the metal 3D plate. Isn't this just one of the coolest 3D folders? I love 3D folders. And then again, another piece of cardstock that's 11 inches by 4.25. Can you do it 5.5 by 4.25? Yes, you could. I mean, 4.5. Can you do it different sizes? Can you do slim lines and all of that? Absolutely. This is just my standard go-to size, guys. So it's what works for me just when I'm trying to demonstrate. And I've also talked before about how with them standing this way, it makes it easier for me to photograph for you. And when a card stands this way, somebody can display it on their shelf and keep the message private. So that's kind of why it's my go-to cardstock layout as far as the basic cuts. So let's just fold this, pull in my double duty ruler. And we'll set that aside for just a second. What I have is I just have some extra wheel pieces. One of the dies in the Legendary Ride bundle, so I don't know where that came from, is this really fun flame. So I have some in yellow just to coordinate with some of the color on the paper. Silver, and then I have some more of that in color glimmer paper. It's sold as a 6x6 to mimic the glimmer on the motorcycle. So that's the pieces that I die cut for this project. So let's go ahead and let's put this fun one together too. And I'll give you just a different idea with this one just a little bit. So we're gonna put our frame down and let's get rid of, I'm picking up dust for sure. Get rid of that. Let's grab our, and I'll show you something with this one. And I mentioned it, but now I can actually show it to you. So let's do that. This one's nice because it's got really wide borders on it. And let's grab one more piece. And I'm just kind of, you know, it's not super neat back here, but nobody sees it. But you can see I'm just kind of making sure that all of those corners meet so that nothing can leak out. And this time, before I put the contents in it, I am going to peel the backing off. So this time I'm going to, because the reason for this one is I'm going to double them up. I'm going to just show you that if you wanted to put something a little thicker to give them more room to move around, you can elevate them. Okay, so you can double up on your foam tape. You've got so many possibilities, guys. I think sometimes we need to be told it's okay to do something instead of just going, what if? And I'm a big what if. If you guys follow me at all, you know that I'm always asking, ooh, what would happen if I did this? And the worst it can be is it doesn't work, right? But now I know exactly what happens. So I'm giving you tons of permission to ask what would happen if I doubled them up. Now, I have found that a plain shaker card like this mails for the same postage. I don't have any heavy metal in here. It's just very, very light sequins and some paper. But if you were using some heavier buttons, You know, you could even put real coins and dollar bills in something like this. So a lot of this is going to depend on the weight of what you put in your shaker window, or in this case here now, because I am raising it up and making it thicker. Here in the US, at least at our post office, it has to fit through a certain size slot for it not to incur extra postage because of thickness. And in this case, this one very likely will not pass that slot test. So this one would incur some extra postage. But if you're taking the time to make somebody a shaker card, I'm pretty positive that they deserve some really fun extra postage. Like, it, you know, they're worthy of that extra postage. So let's see what fun sequins I have here to put in here. Let's go with black and silver. Just something that I have hanging out, laying around from some kit. I don't know which kit, but some kit somewhere had this. And now this is cut smaller than everything else. So it's gonna go on that back. Oops, it will if I peel the backing off. Since I've already done it once, I forgot. The nice thing about doing your card the way I'm doing it right now, so the first one, we literally aimed it onto the paper. You know, this was laying sticky side up, and we took the stamp side and put it down on the sticky. The nice thing about backing your opening with something such as this is you have total control of your placement. You're not just kind of blindly aiming. So now I have my shaker card with all of those fun things shaking around in it. We can go ahead and add our motorcycle to the bottom front of this. We can take our card and we want to make sure that we add a lot of adhesive. We want to really hold that piece on. So really just get that adhesive on there. Don't skimp. We'll put that on the card front. And then as a greeting for this card, I'm going to borrow the greeting from this birthday piggy, and we enjoy the ride. So that's what's going to go on this card front. And you can see that it is thicker and a little bit elevated, but that's going to allow your pieces to slide around even more and for you to have a chance to go ahead and use some thicker pieces that you might want to. Some metals, like I said, some actual real dimes and quarters and nickels. You could tuck inside of that. Even little photos and stuff. Punched shapes, guys. Get your punches out and punch shapes. There's just so many possibilities, and it opens just a whole nother fun world for you. And it can be paper that's in your background. In this case, in the background, I have stamped trees, and then I have the die cut tent. In the background of this one, I layered strips of paper. I just wanted it to have a really happy feel to it. So I layered strips of paper. Anything that you're gonna put in the background here, like in this case, I needed to make sure that all of those strips were really secure with adhesive so that nothing got down and stuck in between them, okay? You can use designer paper to create that fun background, as I did with these two. So lots and lots of possibilities, guys. A great way to use up all of the sequins that I'm sure some of you have hanging out in your studios. Just another fun way to mix up your card making. So if you have a favorite out of all of the samples that you've seen, shout it out below. If you have questions about any of the steps, if you have questions about any of the products, just let me know. And don't forget that I have some fun foam strips that'll go to a lucky winner, and I'll announce that winner on Sunday, just ahead of our celebration, our last celebration Sunday video, guys, at 8 p.m. on Sunday. So we'll see you Sunday, guys. Have an awesome, amazing, remarkable weekend.